a minute. Hold on. All right. Good evening, good people. It's your boy C2, the controversial counselor, in the counselor's corner. Well, tonight's topic is going to be based on communication, um, empathetic communication. So, we know that people always seem to talk about, well, what's the number one thing in relationships to keep relationships going? And most people say communication. But do we really know how to communicate? What's going on, Igor, E. McCracken, Nisi Buff, Big Fred? How y'all doing tonight? So most people says communication is one of the key. But to be honest, I don't think most people know how to communicate. So when they think about relationships, you know, I think people look at it as communication is just being able to talk and, talking with each other. But with empathetic communication, there has to be a component of listening. And that's what I want to kind of focus on this evening. Linda Bailey, how you doing? Mary Boyd. So when you think about empathetic communication, it teaches people how to seek to understand, and instead of being, and then you're understood. So what I mean by that is when you're communicating with someone and you're going through empathetic communication, you wanna you gotta listen, hear them out. You gotta understand their point. You gotta put yourself in their shoes, pretty much to sum it up. And then I think when you put yourself in someone else's shoes and in their place, I think you have a better outcome because you actually, you're feeling what they're going through. So you're going to respond differently. But a lot of times, too often, that's not the case. We don't think about what's going in someone else's world, and we kind of keep everything, basically we stay in our own shoes and then we respond based on that. Of course, I got some notes, so uh, bear with me because I don't want y'all to miss anything. So, and then a lot of things. How you doing, Marcia? Christina, thanks for joining me in the counselor's corner. A lot of things also with communication that most people don't understand, that it's not all about words. Uh, Most people don't even realize that words are usually only 7% of communication, and your voice tone is 30 to 38%. So what I'm saying by that is it's the tone, the nature of how you deliver a message that kind of make or break if someone's um, actually going to pay attention to you. Because if you come off basing off at the voice, or sounding like you got an attitude, and you'll hear people often say, "Oh, what's up with your tone? Like, why you got so much bass in your voice?" So people are gonna automatically tune you out in most cases, or maybe even scared as hell to even focus because they're so nervous. So that tone is a big piece. Then 55 to 60% is your body language, and we know what that is. And like I always say, like I do, do a lot of parallels with talking about my day-to-day job working in the middle school. And when I'm dealing with students, you're looking at their body language. But even in relationships, you people can kind of pick up on certain things that you do. They may know when you're lying because you may do a certain thing. Hey, how you doing, Sherry? So when you think of body language, you may have somebody that's, pounding their fists and you know that they're upset, or maybe like tapping their legs, or obviously like folding their arms. That right there is that body language is the biggest piece in communication. So remember, words is only a small part of it because it goes with that saying, action speaks louder than words. So it would make sense that your actions that you use in your body language is more powerful than words. So remember, words is only 7 to 10%. Then your tone is 30 to 38, and then you have your um, body language, 55 to 60%. So those are just little minor things that you have to pay attention to as far as when you're communicating. And a lot of times we don't think about that when we're in conversation. We're not thinking about our body language or how it may come off to someone. For example, if they're talking to you about something important and you got your phone in your hand and you kind of looking up periodically, that right there is gonna it's gonna do a lot of damage to the conversation. And again, I think this stuff is important to talk about because we always recognize and say that communication is one of the key things to relationships. So if we don't have that straight, then it's all for nothing pretty much. John Crawford, thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. So, like I said initially when I came on, it's not all about talking. Somebody has to listen, and you have to have empathetic listening skills. And I know that seems a lot, and you probably like, won't somebody just shut the hell up and let somebody talk? But it's levels to this, and it's levels to listening, like far as ignoring. You know what that looks like. You're not even trying to listen when you're at that stage of ignoring someone. You're doing something else. You're blocking them out. You could, like I said, you could be in your phone watching TV, sports, or whatever the case is. Women, you might be watching a reality TV show or cooking, cleaning, or doing some work from your job, and you're not giving that person that attention that they need. So the communication is not there in those interactions. Then you got pretending. We know what that looks like too. You seem to be listening, but you're thinking about something else. Your mind is on something else. Whether it's what you got to do the next day for work, or maybe what you got planned the weekend coming up is getting close to the weekend, or who knows? But you're pretending and you're not really being an effective listener. Then you have people that listen selectively. I would call some people out on that, but you know, us fellas would say women have selective listening. But I know women will come back and say guys remember what they want to remember too. And what that is, you pay attention only on what you want to listen. So you hear what you want to hear. And there's whole other pieces to the conversation that you don't pay attention to because you're not listening for that. You're only listening for certain pieces or like certain context clues. Then after that, you kind of tune the individual out. Frederick said it's called active listening. LOL. This is true. That's another word for it. But most people, like I said, that communication piece, as easy as we think it is probably one of the most difficult things for people to actually perfect. Listening carefully. You pay attention to words. I perceive the meaning that the words have for me, or I don't worry about them. So, you're listening carefully, but like I said, you're listening for certain words that kind of appeal to you, and that's the main thing that you're waiting on, and you totally miss other things because you're clued in on words that you kind of perceive a certain way. April Harrison Daniels, thanks for joining me in the Counselor Corner. Derek Duell, thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. Listening empathetically. And this is where you ultimately want to be when you talk about levels of listening. You're listening with the attention to understand. You're open, you're focused on what is inside the other person on their value system. That gives me precise information on what is being said. So you're looking for you're listening for keywords, you're listening for those words of feelings or, stuff that's dealing when somebody brings up an emotion. You're listening for those words and you're trying to respond to those words. And I could give you a prime example. When I was going through my master's program, I had to do an audio tape, and I did it with one of my boys, and he was one of my homeboys, and he was talking about his relationship with his sons, and he was saying how he was so upset at one of his sons for doing, I don't know what he did. I think he got in trouble at school. So my boy was talking, and he was kind of saying, "Man, I'm angry as hell." And I kind of responded. Uh, I went somewhere to the left, and it was one of those transcribed tapes that the professor listened to it, then he would cut in. So he kind of ripped me a new one. He got on my case, and I always speak on him. Shout out to Dr. Pappalardo. He retired from Niagara University for years, but that was my guy. He was the real deal. He was the GOAT, the truth. And he kind of got on me because I didn't address my boy talking about his anger. He was like, I should have. He said, David, you got to be good with the tongue. You got to address that. You can't let that go. If someone tells you they're angry, you need to figure out why they're angry or what's making them angry. So you want to pay attention to those type of things. If somebody come in and they're talking, they're like, "Man, I'm angry as hell," or "I'm pissed off." Obviously, you got to address that. Like, why, what makes you pissed off, or what happened that made you pissed off, and you gotta kind of the way you phrase the words, you kind of have to paraphrase some of the things that they said, so they can actually know that you're listening, because they'll say, "Okay, he's paying attention," but when you're like, "Oh, what? Like, what did you just say?" So, and I know this stuff seems basic, but it's real talk, and it's important that we work on these skills in everyday life, not just in relationships, um, relationships with our children, at work, family members, that we have to learn how to be more effective, as Fred said, active listeners, having empathetic communication. And like I said, empathetic listening is the highest form of listening. When you master that, then people are always going to want to come and talk to you, because they'll know that, okay, I can talk to him. He kind of he validates my feelings. He he addresses things that I'm talking about. He seems genuinely concerned about what I'm going through. So when you master that, you learn to pretty much be a master communicator. What else we got here? What else we got here? And I won't keep y'all long today. Okay, we have Sandra Princess, Chantrell, how you doing? Thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. Hello, Sandra. So, seeking to understand others, like I mentioned before you can give someone some feedback, you have to understand what they're going through. So, in that case, you may be asking like probing questions or rephrasing things that they said. And remember, you're trying to put yourself in their shoes. We do a horrible job of putting ourselves in other people's shoes, and we typically respond based on our experiences. We might have been in a situation similar, and hey, how you doing, Ebony? Thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. Muhammad, thanks for joining me. We might have been in a similar situation before in our life, so we think that the way that we should answer it is the way that we solved it, but that's not, remember, we are unique and different, so that's not how it's going to go down, or that may not appeal to that person, but you definitely got to try to understand what's going on inside that person's head. Uh, One of the questions on here said, can it be learned? Of course it can be learned. But like with anything, it takes time. It takes practice. I mean, I know you're not going to say, hold on, let me practice on my empathetic communication skills. But I think if you start doing it, or you start, making sure you're not focusing, like, when you think about the levels of listening, the ignoring, the selective listening, that you're really trying to empathize with that person. So that may require us to kind of stop doing what we're doing and kind of locking in on what that individual is saying. As hard as that may be, because we have a lot of distractions, and I know sometimes I'll admit that I might always be, like, far as the body language, even like with some of my students, it might be one that comes to see you all the time, and you get to that point of, okay, what do they want now? What now? So you're on your computer responding back to emails and things like that. But kids will tell you in a minute, Mr. Glover, you're not even paying attention to me. Because you're on your computer, you're doing emails or checking emails or whatever, then that's when you have to say, all right. Then, they'll say in a minute, you're so extra, because I get off the computer, stop what I'm doing, and just look them deep in their face. And then they'll say something like, get out my face. But, okay, you wanted me to listen to you, so now I'm giving you my undivided attention. So, again, those are, it's just little things that you have to pay attention to, and we get it all wrong with our communication. Like, here, like the steps to empathy. Number one, listen carefully and time to time use the other party's words. Remember, I say about rephrasing. Express what has been said by your own words, giving feedback how you understood. So you kind of want to let the person know, give them some feedback. You just don't want to sit there and kind of nod your head. You want to give them feedback and kind of validate what they're going through. Try to reflect the partner's feeling, what you think the herd has evoked in him or her. So basically, what you've heard, you want to kind of let them know, this is what I heard you say. This is what I'm hearing you say. Words like that, and I know sometimes that seems too textbook. But I think when it's smooth and you're doing it the correct way, no one really pays attention to that. Helen Dosen, how you doing, my friend? Thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. Occasionally make a summary of the essence of what has been said. Sometimes you got to go back and rephrase everything. Not word for word, but say, for example, if I'm trying to think, and I'm trying to think of an adult relationship. Someone, your wife, comes home, or your man comes home, and they're talking about, they had a rough day at work, and their supervisor, somebody pissed them off. So you really want to be able to rephrase as they're going through. You want to say, man, maybe it sounds like you really did have a rough day. Your boss was being a prick. I don't know if you say those words. I'm just saying. You had a rough day. You started off rough day. The traffic was bad in the morning. You forgot your lunch, so you just really, you really were cranky and really upset. And a lot of stuff was bothering you. And I'm just throwing that off the top of my head, but it's stuff like that you're hearing what they say. So they know that you're listening, because you're going back and you're repeating some of the story of what they told you. And I think sometimes that means the world to people. And sometimes we take stuff like that for granted. And something as small as that can mean the world, that people are like, wow, okay. And, then, sometimes they'll feel better after that. Also express feelings, which it has evoked in importance for partners. So, express those feelings and talk about it. Whoa, that was What else? All right. So when we talk about autobiographical responses, I know stuff seems so much. Nellie C. I'm just gonna say Nellie C. I don't like butchering people's last names, but Nellie C. Thanks for joining me in the counselor's corner. So sometimes our responses is based on certain things. As far as judging, we agree or disagree. Judge if it's right or not. And you hear that phrase, "Don't judge me," or whatever the case is. I always have a thing with that because I think no matter what, when you give your opinion on something, in a sense, you're judging what you think may happen or what you think the perceived problem is. So I always stop people like, don't judge me. Well, when you're talking to somebody, there's going to be people who make judgment and they're going to base it on their personal experience. That's just something that I just think and feel to be true no matter what. Advise. We give often unwanted counsel based on our own experience. Sometimes that's the worst. You call someone, you just want to vent. You want to vent. You want someone to, as Fred say, active listen to you. You want them to kind of rephrase, validate what you're saying, but you don't want them to take over the conversation and kind of make it about them. And they're giving unwanted or unsolicited advice, and you really didn't ask for it. No, I didn't ask what the hell happened to you in that situation. I don't care. Right now, I'm angry and upset and I'm frustrated. I don't care about that story or what happened to you 5 years ago. The exact same thing happened. Shut the hell up and listen. Don't give your advice unless you're asked for it. And we're big on that, trying to give advice. Sometimes you just got to listen, validate, express what you heard. That's all. I know it's difficult as hell to do. Probe. We ask questions from our own frame of reference, not from what is important for the partner. So after a while, we're asking stuff that really may not have nothing to do, or that's not the concern of your partner, but it's something that you just want to know, and it could be a small question or something. So okay, what ended up happening, or why were y'all sitting? Why were y'all sitting in the room by yourself, or what made her say this or that? Why would she respond like that? What did you say before that? All of that stuff is not important at the time. Trust me, if you want to figure those things out down the road, let that happen down the road. But don't start trying to ask questions for your benefit, for something to make you feel better about the situation. You're thinking about that person that you're eyeballing that's in front of you. Interpret. We try to figure people out, to explain their motives and their behaviors based on our own motives and behaviors. So, we're jumping to conclusion or figuring it was something that it really wasn't in the first place because maybe we're feeling guilty about uh, something or something that we went through. So quit trying to interpret situations because a lot of times we misinterpret stuff. So you're just trying to focus on that individual and what they have going on for that particular time. And remember, a lot of the stuff is our responses, and a lot of the stuff is based on perceptions. And our perceptions is based on experiences, culture, uh, religion, family values. Chrissy Decker Lang, thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. So people have different perceptions. That's the bottom line. I'm sure if any of you have taken any classes and you have the picture of the old lady, and some people see the old lady, and some people see the young, pretty lady. It's all about how you perceive things. Or sometimes, like it's a game like the telephone game where you whisper in somebody's ear, and by the time it gets to the end, the whole thing has changed. And because someone wasn't listening to begin with, they kind of throw the whole thing off. They throw the whole um, situation off. It could be something, for example, and I know we do it at school when we go through these lessons, and you may tell a student John has a B in world cultures because his attendance. By the time you it gets to the last person, John John hates the teacher because they gave him uh, poor grades or something like that. Like it totally changes. So, and that's what happens. People hear what they want to hear, and you perceive what you want to perceive, but it may not be true. That's why they say there's no such thing as reality. There's only perception. A lot of stuff is what people perceive things to be. So even though you may know what the outcome is, but when you're talking to somebody, they perceive something different. You can't get upset at them for their perceptions. It's up to you to kind of try to, give them more so they can eventually, oh, okay, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying now. Nisi Cardelis, thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. And we're just talking about empathetic communication that everyone needs to have. It makes you a better partner in a relationship. It makes you a better co-worker. It makes you a better parent. It's universal. It's universal, this stuff. So when you start having good attentive and listening skills, I mean you can go places with those skills, and not everybody has them. But just remember, a lot of stuff is based on perceptions. Um, so one of the things is when you think about being understood in the best possible way, sometimes you have to look at diagnose diagnose a situation before you prescribe your answer. Meaning, like, if you think about when you go to the doctors, they don't automatically just give you, you tell them a few symptoms, or you call in, you leave a message, and then you come in and you're there for a few minutes, and they say, oh, I already know what you got. I'm going to prescribe you. Here's your prescription, and you go to the drugstore without them having any conversations with you. What's going on, Roger? Thanks for joining in the Counselor's Corner. You actually have to diagnose a situation. So sometimes it takes time to figure out what's going on in somebody's head before you can actually give feedback and think about that. So before you give your unsolicited advice, diagnose what's going on, and then come with the proper answer that's gonna show that you actually listen. You actually paid attention to what the person is going through. Like I said, it's universal. It helps, and a lot of times we do horrible jobs as parents because we hear what we want to hear, and you'll be quick to tell a child, "I don't even care what you say. It don't even matter. I know what you did," or whatever the case, and we kind of can project without even hearing them out. So even with them, you have to listen to them, and you can't listen to reply. You have to listen to understand. So sometimes we're bad with that, like mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You're just nodding your head. You're just waiting because you're not really listening. You're listening to reply because you already think you have the answer. You can't wait to speak your peace of mind, and that happens a lot of times. And when you have that mindset, then you can throw everything out the window because you're just listening to reply instead of understanding what the situation is. I think I just gave pretty much the basic steps to empathetic communication. I'm not going to, some of you get it. I'm not going to beat you with a dead horse over it, but you just understanding with empathetic communication, it's the highest effect, the highest level of listening. So keep that in mind on the way that you respond to people. You want to paraphrase some of the things. You want to be attentive to them. Remember, 7%, 7% is words you say, and over 30% is your tone, and then 50 to 60% of it is your body language. So understand that. So I'm not asking people to kind of be like, robotic. And everybody needs to work on this. I'm not saying I'm the master empathetic, because sometimes I could be a jerk if I'm and just be stubborn and not listen. But I know when I reflect on it, I've known I have done wrong, and then you have to try to make things right. And a lot of times people don't know how to make things right, and they get stuck in them. But the communication piece and the listening piece is powerful. Radiant Ronell Marie, how you doing? Thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. I was just about to wrap it up. I was talking about empathetic communication, some of the things that make you effective communicator. Najee Long, thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. And also the 5 levels of listening when you think about ignoring, when you're not even paying attention. You don't even give a damn what they say. You're pretending like you're hearing, but you really can't. If they say, what did I just say? And a lot of times parents get children with that, or teachers get students with that. What did I just say? And you have no idea because you're pretending. You're pretending, and maybe something your mind is elsewhere. Selective listening, when you hear what you want to hear. You kind of honed in on certain points, and that's all you hear. You heard nothing before that, nothing after. You're kind of locked in on it. And then empathetic, was it carefully listening? You're trying to be careful and pick up on certain things, and that's all you're concerned about. You're waiting for them to say certain words, and then you could kind of dive right into them, and you're kind of listening to reply instead of to understand. So you're carefully listening, and then the final phase is empathetic listening, when you're trying to put everything together, validate feelings, uh, listening for the emotion words being brought up, and things of that nature. Right now, hi, hey David, I'm still working on this since Brian and Stratton days. Everyone thinks I'm mean till I open my mouth. No, you're not mean. You're one of the sweetest people. I ain't gonna say in the world, but you know, Rodell, you know how you are. But it's layers that people have to. When somebody understands you and they take the time to listen, they'll know she's sweet. She just may come off like you're mean, but I know for being your advisor, like a lot of times we could have bumped heads, but we really didn't. We was okay. We was cool. Things worked out because I would kind of listen and kind of hear what you were saying, and then I would respond and kind of rip you a new one. If you disagree, you can let me know, but that was kind of my assessment of how things went. But you didn't play around. You were on it. So, but it's great that you're still, working on that, because we're all work in progress, no matter what. And it doesn't. And I'll say it again. It doesn't matter who church service you go to or whatever the case is. These are skills that you have to learn on your own, and you really have to kind of practice them and do them over and over, and but be genuine and authentic with it while you're doing it, and just say to yourself that you're going to try to do better as far as that. William Hunt Sr., thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. So that's all I have. What I'm going to be working on also is getting a system that people can call in. Because I know this typing on live and all that stuff, and I know it's ways that you can invite people in, then their big ass faces at the corner of the screen. But I'm going to be working on getting a call-in system that is probably going to have like 4 or 5 lines that people can call in, have you on the speaker, and people can actually hear your questions or the discussion going on between me and that person as you object or disagree or agree to what I'm saying. So that's coming up soon. I told you I'm not playing in 2019, trying to step my game up in the counselor's corner and bring relevant information, good topics to discuss, and and just keep pushing forward. You said try Periscope too. Yeah, that's a thought. I'm like a dinosaur, Ronell. Like, I, too many things get me perplexed. I don't want to like start getting into all these different avenues, but I know they have, Periscope and what else they have. There's a bunch of other things that you could do, but I'm gonna focus on this level, then I'll venture off. How can you be an effective listener and still get your point across? Uh, you can be an effective listener and get your point across by actually listening and listening to understand instead of replying. Because if you listen, Marcia, if you listen to understand, then you're gathering that data. You're hearing what they're saying. You're going back repeating what they're saying. Then once you get your point, when you say, "Well, I heard you say this," um, and it sounds like you said this, and you may ask them, "Am I hearing you say this?" And they say, "Yeah, I said that." Then that's when you could get your point across. Well, being that you said this point, then this is what I think. So where could they go? Where could they go with it if you read back, you summarized what they said, then you gave your feedback? Where could they go when they agreed? They acknowledged, like, "Yep, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I said. Yep, that's how it went. That's how it went down." That's why people get cross-examined and get screwed by lawyers and stuff like that, because they might agree to saying something, and then the person they're talking to collecting all that data, then they throw it right back at them, and then they're like, "Oh, they're screwed." God gave us 2 ears to listen more and one mouth to talk less, is what my grandmother used to say. Yeah, that is true. Doreen Vance, thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. So you definitely, listening is the key, and being able to go back and summarize what you heard. Because when you have two people just arguing, going back and forth, then it's never going to be effective. And remember, there's no winner in an argument. Somebody has to save face, and somebody has to just listen and kind of be the calm to the storm. When you have people just going at it and you're trying to outtalk one another, it's just a recipe for disaster. Stefan Williams, thanks for joining. Stephen Williams, thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. So Donna Lewis, thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. So our subject, I was just wrapping up and we're talking about empathetic communication. Feel free to go back, re-listen to the video, respond, give your feedback. And, I always try to get back or, respond back to some of the dialogue. So let's just keep it going. So with that said, I'm about to sign off on here. I just wanted to bring up those few talking points about empathetic communication. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Counselor's Corner. You just never know what's going to happen. Sandra said, "What about the one you are talking to do not get it or misunderstand?" They don't get it. You mean and see, this is what would be good with a phone system with somebody calling in, so you don't have to type the stuff in. If the person you're talking to, they don't understand or don't get it, then you probably have to take your time And sometimes you have to ask them questions to validate if they heard what you said. Like, okay, as you're going through it, so you understand what I'm saying. Do you get what I'm saying? And if they say yeah, or then you can ask them a question. Well, tell me what do you think right now? And if they can't say anything or kind of respond back, then you know they really wasn't listening. So sometimes that's why people don't get it, because they're not listening to begin with. Remember, they hear what they want to hear, selective listening, or they're pretending like they're listening, or they just flat out ignoring you. So those are reasons why people don't understand what you're saying, because they're not actively listening. Dietrich Muhammad, thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. Donna, I missed the whole program. Yeah, um, and sometimes I'll send out invites so you'll kind of know when I'm going to be going live. But not that that matters to any of you, but this one was just kind of like off the muscle. And I got some other good topics in the hopper that I'm going to bring up. Probably what's today? It's early Tuesday, so I might have something. Thursday. Uh, who knows? Saturday or something. Uh, you said not hearing you. I'm Sandra. They're not hearing you because they're not listening. It's levels to listening. So, like I said, either they're pretending like they're listening, they're ignoring you, or it's selective. They're picking up on bits and pieces, or they're carefully listening because they're waiting for you to say certain words. They're looking for certain words for you to say, and you may not say those. So if after a while, if they don't get what they're looking for, then they're probably tuning the whole conversation out. So therefore, even as giving a story, sometimes you gotta check in with people to just see if they're really paying attention to what you're saying. And sometimes you may have to ask them to repeat what you just said. And I know that may seem childish or whatever. Most people are like, well, I ain't repeating. I heard what you said. But 9 out of 10, more than likely, when people are like, oh, I heard what you said, they probably missed something. They missed something, because if they heard it, they'll be able to repeat it without no problem. J Rob, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining me in the Counselor's Corner. I was just talking about empathetic communication. But actually, I was about to wrap it up, so feel free to, listen to it after I sign off, and stay tuned for more conversations in the Counselor's Corner. So if y'all have any other questions, I'm online. I'm up. I'll respond to it. But I'm about to get off this air. So thank you for the people that tuned in, and I'll see you real soon in a day or so. All right. Take care. Peace.